So the first I wanted to present you what we need to do in the whole course. So as we study the business intelligence, we need to have first the knowledge about the databases, and we will build the data warehouses and build the data warehouses and also the concept of business intelligence is related to as data representation, data extraction, and data reporting. So all these services are required in the corporate environment. So in the corporate environment. Like we need to have the architecture in which you have the relational databases mostly. Then you have the data warehouse. In the data warehouse server, some data marts. This is a small representation of the whole warehouse. Then you have the pivot table. Then we have the representation, how this data is connected, and there are different models. So we have the architectures, project characteristics, maturity model, employment opportunities like this. So in the second, we describe the work with a multidimensional data model with MDX language, and we use also pivot table tool. In the third module, we also have the schema representation, some summarizability problems, schema integration practice, and the development of data warehouse. Then the important is integration techniques and some data characteristics. What we get when we build this data warehouse. And also in the fifth module, in the fifth module, we can overview some tools. Actually, there are a bunch of them for the integration services and representation one. So like when we have the pivot table, so we have the data that represents different measures. Like we have sales, for example, the products, and we get the number of what we have received. So how many sales we have get for a specific product. There we can have also dimensions like the time, at what time we had specific number of sales, in what regions the sales took place. So the pivot table is like a very interesting and useful way to represent this multidimensional data representation. So we have the schema integration where we have the data source and we need to build the data warehouse schema, how these relational databases are connected to each other in order to obtain the most optimal representation of our business concepts. And we also have the workflow. So, as I have observed, there are several ways that we can work, like some business intelligence that are popular in the United States, like this Pentaho, and there is a Pivot 4G, this for pivot table representation. It's popular Oracle, MySQL, but I also wanted to focus on the representation of data in Microsoft SQL Server using analysis services. But this tool in the open online courses is not widely represented. So I have gathered some course from the Plural site that describes the concepts of analysis services and how we can work with this type of data. So there is also the management services, we can divide them into three categories: low-level management, middle management, top management. So the low level focuses on individual transactions, summaries of operational databases, exception reports that assist operational management. Middle management summarize data that are integrated across some list of operational databases. It can integrate across different departments, manufacturing plants, and retail stores. As the top management is the highest level, it is based on the middle management analysis and also external data sources. It needs to integrate data so that different customers, products, supplies, and other entities so can be tracked the entire organization, across the entire organization. And one important feature, we need to summarize and integrate the data we have. Like this decision-making hierarchy, so operational or lower. So on the lower level, we work mostly with the data sources and how to retrieve data from them. On the middle, we use a forecast, new markets, and at the top level, we have the strategic resources. So there can be some limitations in and difficulties in deploying the data and data storages and data integration. So we can have some missing features for queries, for data modeling approaches. We can have some limitations in business analyst query tools that are very important to get the data from different categories of data sources. So there can be performance limitations. These problems can be met in mostly all the all the category of business intelligence solutions, because when you have the database and just they using the transaction processing, when you have many transactions, the system can be overloaded, and sometimes we need to create separate database to keep other resources in there. So there can be also the management issues with integration. So there can be lack of integration with support databases. So, and we need to have in mind that relational database in building the data warehouses were not so focused until the late 1990s. So previously, when the relational databases started to develop so rapidly and different integration services appeared, so the development of data warehouses increased in the speed, and the success in this field was achieved at that time. So these are the limitations I have presented in the previous slide. So there can be also the characteristics like the subject oriented, so the business organized around the business entities like the customers, products, employees. It is integrated, so many transformations are made to unify source from different data sources. And so time variant, so as there is a axis of the time, we need to have the snapshots of different business processes at specific points in time. So as the time is an important dimension in all this data representation in the warehouses. As existing data is changed, we need to have the updates in our data warehouse, as it is very important. So we have the comparison of different processing environments. We have the transaction processes, so there are lower cases when we have the data being processed from one data source, so new records in the data are created, and so on. So it is the process that takes place constantly, and it is we must pay attention to it. And also the business intelligence processing, when we transformed the data represented in the way where we have the summarized, we can build the summarized reports about what's happening in our business sphere. So there can be specific characteristics of what we have in the operational database that we have, and also the data house. As for the availability of data, we have the current, what it is in our database, and we also have this historical view of what was in our database before. Details level, there we can have the individual, so what is kept in the database, and in the data warehouse we have the summary of the data that was represented in these databases. So how many records we have? We usually for operational fewer records than in the data warehouse where we have hundreds and thousands requests. And the normalization level in the database, it's like a standard to have the data represented in several normal forms until the voice code normal form, or even the fourth normal form. So your data must be always normalized in order for this better representation and clarity. While in the data warehouse, we focus more on the summary of data, and normalization is not always presented. So in the data warehouse, we have the relational model, and in data warehouse, we usually build multi-dimensional data cubes, so the so-called OLAP cubes, online analytical processing. So this term is also important. So like this is the representation of schemes. So what is also important for us to have, as I want you to focus on working with Microsoft SQL Server, so there are a list of services like this: the core service, the analysis services, and also the reporting services. So they allow you to successfully work as with relational databases, and also to build the analysis services. So I have also uploaded you some tutorials, and also the course that is related to Microsoft SQL Server analysis services. And then in the second part of the course, I suppose that we have and we will work with Microsoft Power BI, Power Business Intelligence Service. That is very important now, and it allows you to build very complex reports, and so it is the all-in-one service. It provides you as building as integration of data, the transformation of data, and representation of data within the report form. So the course, so I have uploaded for you the links. So the materials, so you can download it. And And here we have the links. The first one is how we can create the data warehouse in Microsoft SQL Server. So it is about the setting environment and some designing the data warehouse. And also there are some SQL Server integration services. They are described there. So the second one I have. I also have this training kit, like the official book from Microsoft that allows you to implement the data warehouse with Microsoft SQL Server. So you can take a look at this book to read it, to read some chapters, and to get some ideas how does this, how we work with data warehouse in Microsoft SQL Server. So it's quite a long. It describes many features of Microsoft SQL Server, not just analysis services, but also the integration services. The next one I have also the Pluralsight. That is, I suppose that this course is one of the most optimal for us to build the online analytical these OLAP cubes. It describes you how you can work with the data sources, how you can build the dimensions, the measures in analytical services, and how you can also deploy the whole cube itself. So please take a look at this course. So it is represented in the video formats like this.
Hello, to Analysis module. We'll start learning about SQL Server analysis services, covering some basic concepts that you need to understand before beginning to develop your own databases. We'll start by reviewing the type of queries that are common in business intelligence. Then we'll look at various ways that we can incorporate analysis services into a business intelligence environment.
So the next interesting. So there is a small theory description of about the relational queries and OLAP queries. But here, like we have, for example, the demonstration of how to deploy the analytical services. So there are around 100 videos. So everything in detail, from importing data sources, from building a scheme, from building a measure, and building the dimensions. Just for now, yeah, and here is a book. So please take a look at it. Like, it should be the official for the Microsoft exam. And then about the practice assignment. I have uploaded you the first practical assignment where you can train in writing the queries to relational database. So you can build these tables and write some queries to obtain the results. So this is for today's assignment, and you can, if you have already SQL Server installed, you can start doing it now. Just you can create a new database source to create a new table, and then write some queries for you to have the obtained results from your queries. So what result you get, so what data you retrieve from your database.